We had talked about what bacteria have to do to survive. We talked about this yesterday, homeostasis, and making more bacteria. And today is the 8th? Today's the 9th? 8th? Okay. All right. So we said they have to maintain stable conditions, and they don't have a way to do that. If conditions change, they're just dead. Heat them up, they die. Freeze them out, they die. Salt them, they die. I won't go to the inevitable conversation about salting slugs. Hopefully none of you ever did that as children. Okay. Bacterial populations, and this gets to one of your vocabulary words. A population is a group of organisms of the same species living in the same time and place. The and got cut off there. And. Same time and place. Your gut has many bacterial populations. A tub of yogurt has many bacterial populations. I brought in props. Whoops. A sample of soil has got many bacterial populations. A pond, the pond out there, has many bacterial populations. A dog's skin has a bunch of bacterial populations. A tree's bark has many bacterial populations. Get it? Everything, everyone, every place has bunches of bacterial populations. Now I shut up. So there are all these bacterial populations on your skin, like multiple bacterial populations, because you probably have 100 species of bacteria living on your skin at any given point. You probably have a couple hundred species of bacteria living in your gut. You couldn't live without them. Babies get their first dose. In the womb, they don't have much of a bacterial population on their skin or in their gut. As they go through the birth canal, as they come out of the vagina, they get doused with bacteria from their mother's vagina. There are now a lot of stories, there's a lot of research being done. They're starting to understand that babies born via C-section have different bacterial populations on their skin than babies born vaginally. We have evolved with those bacteria on our skin. So you get this big dose of bacteria all over your skin. That's your first bacterial population. And without those bacteria, bad bacteria could basically attach to that infant and colonize them and infect them and kill them. They're getting healthy bacteria that they need to have on their skin, and it's like a desert island. There's only room for so many creatures to eat. It's like a desert island. There's only so much food to go around. So if only 100 species of bacteria can survive there, you want to make sure it's the healthy ones, it's the good ones, not the ones that are going to cause an infection, like a KPC-bearing bacteria or an E. coli bacteria or a salmonella bacteria. So we are covered in bacteria. Each species of bacteria is its own population. You have multiple populations on your skin. Many, many, many populations. Now, I've drawn a little friend here. It's a bacteria. It's not great artwork, but it'll do. This is a little rod-shaped bacteria, and I'm only showing 3 things on this bacteria. And remember, bacteria are pretty simple little creatures. They're prokaryotes. They're early primitive life forms, and they have a cell membrane, a cell wall, some DNA. They have a few other things, but we're not going to talk about those now. Really pretty simple little friend that I've drawn here. There might be, and I'm going to copy this. If you're using Doceri or something similar, you can just copy it also. How's the contrast? Can you see that green well enough? I'm going to shrink this a little bit. I'm going to copy it because I'm going to make a population here. Now we're going to make this in miniature. While I'm doing this, why do they say eating yogurt's so good for you? Because it's tasty, because it's delicious. It is. I eat yogurt every morning. Why? Why do we eat? Other than the fact that we like it. What's yogurt supposed to do for you? What do you think, Tyler?
Bad bacteria?
Well, it doesn't kill bad bacteria, but it gives you good bacteria. So, yogurt gives you good bacteria. And I'm going to draw this picture, and then we're going to continue to use this picture for a while, so you do want to replicate this in some form. If you're a really visual learner, I am, you might want to use colored pencils. I have colored pencils here. You're welcome to help yourself. If you're one of these people, I'm kind of crazy about color because it really helps me remember what's what. Like, I don't do well if things aren't color-coded. Yes, sir?
Speaking of yogurt, I remember reading this one thing about...
Okay, so I've got a population of these bacteria that I drew. These really simple bacteria, cell membrane, cell wall, chunk of DNA. Okay. This could be a population in your gut. This could be a population in this tub of yogurt. This tub of yogurt had in it pasteurized skim milk, and it has 4 species of bacteria. It's got Lactobacillus bulgaricus, Lactobacillus acidophilus, Lactobacillus bifidus, Lactobacillus casei, and I'm not sure what the genus is on the Thermophilus bacteria. 4 species? 5 species? 1, 2, 3, 5. 5 species of bacteria in there. So this could be one of them. This is a population. If they're all the same species and they're living at the same time in the same place, that is a population of this species. We could name this species. So what was our big question with this unit? What's the big question that we're seeking to answer? Remember this from yesterday? So there's one big driving question behind all this. What is it, Tyler? How on earth does this happen? How do we get bacteria that are resistant to antibiotics? How do we get wounds colonized, completely taken over by bacteria that are completely resistant to antibiotics? It's terrifying. How does it happen? So the answer is actually natural selection. That's one of your vocabulary words. And there are 4 basic assumptions that we look at when we look at natural selection. These are the basics. I'll read it, then I'll shut up and let you copy. All populations have natural variation. The environment presents challenges to survival and reproduction. Individuals tend to produce more offspring than will actually survive. And an individual that has a mutation or a feature that has some advantage for survival tends to pass on more of their genes. I'll shut up. The common misconception with populations is that it's the number of people living in a place. That's population size. We'll talk about that when we get into ecology. In the biological sense, generally when we're talking about a population, we are talking about all the members of that one species that are living in a place together. So we have to know that it's one species. So I gave this a species name. I had to pull something out of thin air. I made it up. But we have a species name. We know this is a population. So all populations have some natural variation. Well, turns out, perhaps, we have a few of these guys. Here are these little bacteria. Oh, come on. Allow me to select. I'm changing something about them that have a thicker cell wall. So nothing, nothing, whoops, that's way too thick. I didn't want to go that thick. So, it's not a big crazy difference. It's not like having a cell wall versus not having a cell wall. But their cell wall is just a little bit thicker than everybody else's. And to draw, if you're drawing on the iPad on Doceri or something, I had to zoom in really tight to do that. So you would have to do the same. So, you know, maybe just a couple folks in this population, a couple bacteria. And of course, they are neither male nor female. They are just bacteria. They are neither, they are both. Have this thicker cell wall. Well, that's convenient for them. You know, just like in a given population of rabbits, maybe one or two just have longer ears. We currently have a rabbit, one of the rabbits that's attacking my garden on a nightly basis, has no ears. We call it the earless rabbit. My daughter will yell, "It's the earless rabbit!" and go running outside to try to catch it. It's never going to happen. It's got really short ears. I mean, its ears are literally like that long. It's got these stubby little ears. Variation. There are differences in any population. Look around. Look at one another. Y'all look the same? I mean, you're all remarkably similar. You all have the general configuration of 2 lower limbs, 2 upper limbs, 1 head, 2 eyes, 1 nose, 1 mouth. General configuration is pretty similar. In general, hearts are on the left side internally. We can't see that. In general, stomach lays somewhere about here, midsection. In general, you're pretty darn similar, but there are some notable differences. And we'll actually do a lab that explores those as we start to talk more about evolution. We'll do a variation lab. Everybody stick up your pinky. So, different lengths, yes. Some are crooked, some are straight. I'm in the crooked pinky club. My pinky looks like a summer squash. That's variation. These bacteria have variation. You can't tell one bumblebee from another, can you? You ever tried to pick out one bumblebee from another? Like an individual, like you named a bumblebee and you wanted to like keep following Susie the bumblebee all summer? You can't do it. There's a guy we go buy honey from down the road from us, and he, every year when he gets the queen, I mean, the queen is larger. She's a big bee. But to keep track of her, he puts a dot of paint on her back, because otherwise you can't pick her out of all those bees. Now, are all those bees identical? No, they're not. There is still variation. Can we see that variation? Heck no. We can't tell. We can't tell them apart. One bee looks like another bee to us. For the most part, one rabbit looks like another rabbit to us. I mean, you get a really extraordinary, like my little earless guy. I can pick him out of a lineup. But for the most part, one rabbit looks like another to us. One red squirrel looks like another red squirrel to us. One bacteria certainly looks like another bacteria. No difference observable to us. But there is variation. They're not all the same. That's good for the species. That's awesome. That's fantastic. When we're talking about bacteria, there might be a downside. Well, what causes them to be a little bit different? Some little difference in one little piece of their DNA. Some little gene is different. So all those bacteria that have a thicker cell wall might have one little chunk of DNA that's just a little bit different. What causes me to have a crooked pinky and you to have a straight pinky? I have one little gene with a little mistake in it. This is actually considered a minor birth defect. I found that out a few years ago. It's a single gene mutation. My daughter has them too. My dad had them too. Crooked pinkies. It's a difference in their DNA. There's something a little bit different in their DNA. It gives them a slightly thicker cell wall. Now, could you have a bacteria that had a difference in its DNA and had no cell wall? That had a mutation? Could that happen? It could. Would that bacteria be likely to live very long? No. They really count on that cell wall. I cannot, for the life of me, get the rest of this. There we go. So, you know, maybe that bacteria has a little section of gene up there that gives it no cell wall. It's defenseless. There's variation in any population. And again, I'll read this to you, then I'll shut up and let you copy. Variation can happen as a result of mistakes in copying DNA. We call that a mutation. It's hard to copy things perfectly. Some mutations have no effect whatsoever on an organism. Some mutations have a negative effect on an organism, sometimes fatal. Some mutations have a positive effect on an organism. Bigger, better, stronger, faster. In bacteria, variations can include difference in the thickness of the cell wall, differences in the chemical makeup of the cell wall, differences in the speed of reproduction, differences in how well bacteria hide from attackers. So let's look at those first couple statements. Some mutations don't have an effect on an organism. My crooked pinky finger is a mutation. It has a physical effect. You can see that my pinkies are crooked. As a kid, I hated my pinkies. I wanted to like straighten them in a vise. Thank goodness I didn't try that. But there, you can have a change in DNA that doesn't actually show up in any kind of physical effect. When we start to talk more in depth about DNA, you'll understand more of why that is. But for now, you kind of have to take my word for it. You can have a change in DNA and it doesn't change what's expressed. That would be kind of like if I wrote a sentence and I changed the spelling of the word to 2. Does it change the meaning of the sentence? Is somebody going to read it the same way? Does it sound the same? Yeah, no effect. Now, you know, an English teacher or somebody who gets twitchy about grammar is going to look at that and go, "Brah, you used the wrong 2." But it doesn't have an effect. Overall, it doesn't really matter, right? It doesn't change something. Some mutations have a negative effect on the organism, and sometimes that effect is fatal. Let's look back to our bacterial population of Bacterius exempli. Who has a fatal mutation? Okay, jot down your answer. Exchange comments with your neighbor. Are you thinking the same thing they are? Who has a fatal mutation here? Question. Yeah, on this. On this. Which of these bacteria has a mutation that would be fatal? Not going to allow them to survive for long. Okay. Everybody come to their own conclusion? Sandra, what do you think? Yeah, the one who's got no cell wall. It's got nothing to protect it. This is a fatal, seriously fatal mutation. It's terrible news for this bacteria. First time anything comes along, it's just going to kill it. It's a fatal mutation. Some mutations have a positive effect. Bigger, better, stronger, faster. X-Men, they're all mutants, right? Their mutations have a positive effect. Except on gloves. Which of our little Bacterius exempli have a mutation that gives them that is a positive, that actually makes them bigger, better, badder, tougher, stronger, faster, or whatever? Okay, Haley. Yeah, we've got these guys right here that are like super bacteria. They have an extra thick cell wall. They're very well defended. They're going to be the last ones standing when something bad happens. Big differences in bacteria in terms of mutations. A lot of it comes down to the cell wall. How thick it is, what actual chemicals it's made up of. I brought that egg in for a couple reasons. I mean, it's great to look at what, how does cooking change protein? We actually call it denaturing a protein. You can wake up on a Saturday morning and say to your family, I think I'm going to denature some proteins in the kitchen. They'll go, huh? Because you're cooking eggs. But there are also different proteins. You know that eggs don't look like ground beef. And ground beef doesn't look like a pile of wheat flour. True? If you have not seen all three of these things, again, you have homework. Go home, go to the kitchen, find an egg, find some flour. They look different. They're made up of different chemicals, different proteins. They're all protein. Soybeans are made mostly of protein too, but it looks different. You can have different proteins in the cell wall of a bacteria. And then there are also differences in speed of reproduction, differences in how well camouflaged they are. Think about somebody in the woods in blaze orange come October versus somebody wearing Realtree head to toe. One of them sticks out a little bit more. Okay, we're actually going to stop here. For the last couple minutes that you've got, what I want you to do is pull out that vocab sheet. Do part C. Which words have we done today? Okay, so at this point, you should have or be working on part C for 1, 6, 7, 14, 3, 4, 5, 11. And I'll probably check vocab. Well, maybe we'll do the whole packet because we don't. It's not a big packet, so I may check it. Well, we'll assume I'll check it tomorrow, but we'll see what happens. So as we move through, okay, you've got time to work.